Seems like most people are in YouTube, Mel. Just so you know, everybody's commenting from YouTube. Oh, we're not even on Facebook yet. That's why. He's got to set it up. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the good old Angery American Nation Podcast. And as you can see, it's just me and Russ tonight.
Just us hanging out, brother.
Yeah, his lovely bride needs to go see the doctor, and so he's out. Emery is, as you guys know, employed until further notice, and Sue is senile and probably forgot. So
I sent him a text message. He hadn't responded back. So
yeah, that's my story. And I'm sticking to it. Sue is senile, so it's just us.
He didn't get the email. Let me resend it to him. I'm going to drop off.
He didn't get the email
for a minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah. We'll get him in here. So let me see. Can't find the polls for the. Oh, Meta and Kelly. I'm reading messages, guys. I'm trying to catch up. So what is up, everybody? Let me see who we got in the house tonight. All the usual suspects. Matthew King, Christie obviously is here. I saw Russ's name. Guy. Who was first tonight? Christie was first. Ooh. There we go. So, Dan Kebro, what is up, man? Patrick, what's up, Patrick? How the hell you doing, bro? I ain't been on Twitter much today. I've been driving up to Tallahassee. We just got here, and we're in this lovely Airbnb to go muck around at the Florida house tomorrow. So, hopefully we'll get some cool pictures and some video of the talk that evening, I hope. Paula Howell in the house. What's up? Sandy Darden, how you doing, brother? We stopped and met Sandy on the way up here to look at Ranger Malawa that we're seriously interested in getting, only because he's very well trained right now, and he's going to get trained even better if we take him. So he's going to get trained for bite work, be a protection dog. Jimmy Machado, what's up? Patrick says, I'm doing great. Sent you a message on Twitter. It's got a pic of my new portable battery box that runs on DeWalt batteries and is all contained in an ammo box. That's awesome, dude. I'll check it out. I ain't had time to look at it. I was trying to scroll through Twitter right before we came on here, just looking at the nonsense. I saw a picture from the border that was what looked like, I don't know, 3,000 African immigrants, illegal immigrants. Let's call them what they are, all lined up down there. And then earlier this week, I saw some videos from some African immigrants here and some in the UK, all complaining about the quality of their hotels, the quality of the food, the fact that they're not given more free money to go spend, and they're all mad about that. So, but it's not an invasion, and it's all good for the country, right? You know what they tell us? It's all good for the country because they put up that lousy ass border defense bill. They call it whatever they want, and it was no border protection whatsoever. You know, it was actually going to allow them to make what they're presently doing codified in law, because Biden can shut the border down whenever he wants. All he has to do is do it, but he refuses to do that. So this is intentional, and so the Republicans got so much blowback from it that they all bailed on McConnell, and now he's got egg all over his face. And the Democrats immediately come out with a standalone bill to give Ukraine the billions that they wanted to give them in that bill. Not a new border bill, not something reasonable that actually does something for America. Instead, they want to give about 40 more billion to Ukraine. So Zelensky and his generals and all can steal it, because that's what most of it's doing. Maureen says, did you hear about the major children's hospital in Chicago that has been cyber attacked? Out for a week so far. Postponed it. Surgeries, medical records unavailable to be accessed. Wow. Yeah. Expect more of that in the very near future. I got a feeling we'll be seeing a lot more of that. Let's see here. See. Dan says, brought in 5 new cult followers by playing book 1 while I was working. They all groaned when I was done and shut it off. I sent them to your site to order their box sets. Well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, Patrick, there you go. Saw they wanted more pocket money. I think that's African for walking around money, and the Dems used to hand out for votes. Yeah, same thing, same shit. Yeah, they're complaining they're not being given enough money. And then there's some funny ones too, where I've seen one guy said he was going back to Africa because this life here was bullshit, as he put it. The weather sucked, everything sucked, and he was leaving. So, old school. What is up? Yeah, Christy. The cyber attack thing is going to escalate. Like I imagine as the year goes on this year, we're going to see a lot more of that shit. So who saw the Nevada primary results where 60% of the voters picked none of these? I thought that was fantastic. Bring that here. So I've got to open Mel's brewski for her. I've got the can opener, the bottle opener, I should say, my knife. But yeah, 60% of the people voted for none of these because Trump wasn't on the ticket. So they're all now jazzed up about South Carolina, thinking that she's going to somehow carry that state, which I got a feeling that she is going to be trounced in there. Who are you looking for?
Nikki Haley's real name.
Huh?
Nikki Haley's real name.
Oh, yeah, look that up. Give me that. Yeah. Oh, okay. And so Mel was pulling this up for me. So who here knows Nikki Haley's real name? You guys know she changed her name. I didn't know that. She also made her husband change his first name from Bob to Mark.
Michael.
I'm sorry, to Michael. Yeah, Michael, not Mark. From Bob to Michael. But Nikki Haley's real name is Nimrata Nikki Randhawa Haley. So I remember seeing, no, she's not a rhino. She's a Democrat plant. I remember seeing a while ago where she was on some news show someplace talking about how she got made fun of every day because she was brown. But she changed her name and never talked about that. I don't believe her. I think it's full of shit. And why'd she change her name? So she wouldn't sound like she wasn't from here. But her true colors, pun intended, came through. The Dalton reveal. Yeah. Well, those are going into production later this year. Around April, probably. We're going to be putting those into production. So, yeah, the Dalton will be in production hopefully by April is what I'm hoping for. Let me see. Look at description January 6th. Yeah, the description will change. They'll have to see what a real insurrection looks like the way they're going. Oh, so Patrick says any desk got hacked. That's a big deal because they got the source code. Everyone, including the world governments and military, use it for remote computer and systems use. Gov hardly talking about it. So any desk was hacked. Wow. They're going to have a hard time fixing that one. I think the Brits have a term for that. It's we're proper fucked, is how they usually say it. Oh, there's Sooster. We got the Sue man now. What? So I got it.
Got it?
Got it. Me and Russ are pressing buttons at the same time right over here. Turning each other. So
I'm don't feel bad. I'm too dumb to use a smartphone. I know that. So yeah. So
I just told everybody you were senile and forgot.
I am. I got here and I was getting signed on and everything, and I realized I was trying to do it on last week's email. So
yeah.
I look like an idiot. Sorry. I don't look like an idiot. I am an idiot.
Sure. Patrick, I'm gonna disagree with you. Kukri's a way better blade profile than a Bowie. Way better. It's a much better chopping knife. So, and Sue, that beard's looking like awesome. You're starting to fill in. I mean, is this a seasonal beard? Is this a seasonal beard or?
My wife told me, she said, man, I love that beard on you. And I said, so what you're saying is I'm ugly. Oh, okay.
Patrick, you're wrong. A kukri serves way more purposes than a Bowie does. Way more.
Yes.
The Bowie knife looks cool.
that curve on the kukri gives you a lot more power too.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that till I took a buoy up against the kukri with an actual Gurkha soldier in Bosnia, and that boy could actually cut down some trees with that knife.
Oh yeah.
Amazing, yeah, amazing
Yeah.
what they can do with those knives. Yeah.
Dan says any desk endpoints are not affected by the hack, only corporate. At least that's the story they're telling us. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. So, Sue, do you know Nikki Haley's real name? I was just talking about this right before you came in here. Do you know her
I
real
was
name?
listening to it in the on the backstage. I didn't memorize it, but it is very, yeah, it sounds very Hinduish, and
Very, yeah. It's got a real
yeah,
curry flavor to it, doesn't it?
yeah. And I was wondering if she actually worships Brahma bulls too, because I got one in the pasture over here that she can have if she wants it. But,
Yeah. Nimarata Randhawa. Nimarata Randhawa. And she
yeah,
changed that to Nikki Haley. And it made her husband's name was Bob, and she made him change that to Michael.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and she did it for political. Let's be honest, she did it for political purposes. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy, he hasn't changed his name, but I
No.
really like that guy. I like his approach. I hope he's in the running for Trump's VP, or he's somewhere on the cabinet, because I would love to work for that guy and just go to the Department of Defense and just go along and tell people in all these cubicles, you're fired,
You're
you're fired,
fired. You're
you're fired,
fired. You're
you're fired.
fired.
Yeah, he's talking
Yeah.
about getting rid of entire government agencies, which is, when we talk about, draining the swamp. I hate to say it. I had a long conversation going down the road with my neighbor today to actually enforce change, or to get change in the current establishment. We have to get rid of entire agencies, because there's there's too much regulatory authority by these uh, non-voted or
Not
political
elected.
actors
Unelected.
in the
Yeah.
establishment.
Unelected.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's the,
unelected
yeah.
officials come up with regulations. They don't go through Congress. EPA is a good example. EPA is a premier example of how, if they just don't like you, they can shut you down and claim that they're saving a fish, or they're saving a
Yep.
toad, or even where we're at Fort Bragg in my younger days, there were entire huge swaths of acreage that you couldn't train on in the training area on Fort Bragg, because it was the home of the cockaded red-headed woodpecker. And do not get caught in there, or your unit will pay a fine.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Congress didn't vote on that.
The snowy owl and all that kind of shit. Same stuff. So Jimmy says, what are your thoughts on Tucker interviewing Putin? What do you think, Sue? I think it's fantastic. Barbara Walters did. Other people have, journalists, and none of them were called to be expelled from the country. The EU isn't talking about putting sanctions on them, but they are on Tucker Carlson because he's guilty of wrongthink. So
Well, I'm going back to I'd go back to what Trump said. In his last term, was he's like, why can't I talk to these guys? I mean, that's the problem that we're all fighting. Why can't I talk to Kim Jong Il? Why can't I talk to, Vladimir Putin? Why can't I talk to him? I mean, I'm the president of the United States, so if Tucker Carlson's going to interview him, I think Putin has every right to give us his view of why he's doing what he's doing. That's one of the 5 things that's in the First Amendment. Freedom of speech. He should be allowed to say, "There's why I invaded Ukraine." Why can't he say it?
Yeah, he's gonna.
So
I got a feeling that he's going to give his reason why, and the rest of the world won't believe that reason. But having followed Ukraine since like 2008 is when I started tracking it. When the Maidan and all that stuff was, I started tracking then, and the Maidan went down, and then we advanced to where we are today. It was obvious what was going to happen. And we did it, guys. You got to understand, we started that war over there. John McCain and Victoria Nuland were there, and the next thing you know, it's hell in a handbasket in Ukraine. because we went over there and instigated what's going on. One of the first acts that the new administration that we installed in Ukraine did was to outlaw the speaking of Russian in Ukraine. So Donbass, Luhansk, those regions in eastern Ukraine are native Russians. Their Russian is their native language. So it'd be like somebody here being elected president and just suddenly saying, like, you can't speak Spanish in the United States, when that's the native language of a large segment of our society. They'd be a little mad about that too. So I get why they're pissed. Not saying I agree with everything Putin's doing, because I don't, but I understand how this started, and it all could have been avoided. This whole thing could have never happened.
Right.
But, didn't want him selling natural gas to the EU. So, because that's what it was about, natural gas.
Well, and I think if people would do just a little bit of history and everything, and they go, you don't have to go back very far. Go back to when Stalin was in power in Ukraine. They're talking about the Donbass. They're talking about everything along that whole river there. And if you realize that Stalin actually starved the Ukrainian people and then placed Russian people there, that gave them their excuse for invading. Those people haven't been there for generations or hundreds of years, like they claim.
They have not.
Those are Russian. Those are already Russian. They were Russians just a few decades ago. They were pushed there when Stalin starved the Ukrainian people and all the food went to the cities. They weren't even allowed to have a vegetable garden in Ukraine.
They weren't even allowed to go to the field and pick up fallen grain. They couldn't even go to the fields and pick up scrap grain. If they were caught with it, they'd be executed. And that's the Holodomor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, Hitler used the same technique to invade Austria or march into Austria, claiming that there were German people there, that was their land, but those people had only been there for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So that was his excuse for annexing Austria. So So
John Simmons says, any legitimacy to the hit Zelensky put out on Tucker Carlson? I know that the Ukrainians have a hit list of journalists and people, and even like just like influencer kind of online folks who don't tote the Ukrainian narrative water. They do have a kill list. So is it possible? Sure. Is it going to happen? I seriously doubt it, because it would look bad for him for a large segment of the population, but the world at large would think it was a huge service. So it's a possibility. I think Zelensky would put a hit out on Carl Tucker for going over there.
Yeah, and just to remind people, our current press corps says, and a lot of people in Congress keep on saying, we got to out of this, for example, out of this border bill, we got to give Ukraine $70 billion if they're fighting for democracy. Ukraine's never been a democracy, guys, ever.
No, they're not.
Ever.
No, they're not.
And Zelensky's just as bad.
Oh, yeah.
If you go over to Ukraine, ask yourselves, why is there only one narrative on every channel they have? Because they own the press. The government owns the press. It's not a democracy.
They jailed journalists.
Believe in that lie.
Yeah, they jailed journalists, so and
Christian priests, they've jailed Christian priests. Yeah.
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah, and like Patrick says, people have a short memory. 2014, 10 years ago. Like, go on YouTube and look up "Roses Have Thorns" and watch that. It's a lot of videos to watch, but it's like 24 total hours of video. But it explains this thing to you, the nexus, how it started, and it's really the best because it's a lot of on the ground as it occurred video that was filmed. And you really see how it occurred. Like, it's right there in front of you. Let me see. Wayne says, powerful unelected GOP officials decided Trump couldn't be voted for in Nevada's primary. Are any of these people going to be held accountable? Well, they need to be. He's probably going to be elected anyway, whether Nevada lets him or not. He'll still win enough votes. And the good people of Nevada can always just write his name in on election day. He doesn't have to be able to ticket. What have you been up to today, Sue?
I just got back from around Kings Mountain. That's right on the border of North Carolina, South Carolina. Famous Revolutionary battle fought there. and I was putting in traps for a friend of mine who's had problems with coyotes and feral dogs on his property. So my neighbor Troy and I went over there and put and placed some traps for him. If he'll go check them, we put the traps over there.
Well, that's good.
And we're going to lift the rest of our trap line because I'm just too damn old to walk up these mountains and check them every day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Let me see here. Patrick says a big part was we pushed to have Ukraine change their country's laws so that they could export their crop and raw materials. It was part of their constitution we helped them put together after the riots. Yeah, and of course we did.
Yeah.
Of course we did. Yeah, and Nick says if we can give other countries as much money as we do, then we are overtaxing our own people. Amen. We got enough problems here at home. You look at what they want to give Ukraine, what they want to give Israel. And I'm not saying don't support Israel. I mean, I'm all for supporting Israel, but I bet they don't really need our money. I'll bet they don't really need our money.
Well, let me, and as you know, Chris, I do some consulting work and everything, and I was just in Ukraine in December, early December. And what I saw over there, there was some air raid sirens going off once in a while and things like that. But in Kiev itself, there's all the shelves are full. It was total Christmas time. There was lots of military age males running around with their man buns and their instruments, and they were really enjoying the Christmas spirit and everything. And I was looking at all that, and I was like, no, the front's about 3 hours away, or the front's like 45 minutes north. Until all of you are in uniform and you're fighting for your own country, then I don't see why any NATO country would send their flesh and blood over here to die in your war. All of you need to be on the front line. That being said, though, what's the reason Russia is really there? Crimea. This goes all the way back to this time of the czars. They need a warm water port for their navy, right?
Yep.
Their only other port is up around St. Petersburg, which kind of freezes over and gets full of ice and everything in the wintertime. So the Russians think that they need a warm water port, but they still have to go through the Straits of Istanbul, which is Turkey, and supposedly a NATO country, but Aragon is kind of leaning towards the Muslim side. And I don't really know if he's really NATO anymore or not. So
I think he's NATO when it's convenient for him. Otherwise, he don't really give a shit. He wants the money, he wants the weapons, and that's it. That's all he wants. He's not in this as a team player for NATO, which I don't blame him for not wanting to be part of NATO, really. But NATO's a joke. It's outlived its usefulness.
But all of us need to stop paying for their defense budget. Then we need to just stop giving them money. Period. And spare parts and everything like that. But when you talk about Ukraine, and are they corrupt? Yes, they're corrupt. Matter of fact, some of the things I was consulting for, they're like, well, we can do with what your product. We can do that. Just give us the money, and we can do it for $1,500 when you want to charge us, or you want to bring over this product that costs $45,000. And I looked at them and I was like, well, they claim you're corrupt. I can look out the window here of the meeting and I can see a Dodge Charger there. Who's that? Oh, that's Colonel So-and-so's. Who's BMW's out there with Norwegian license plates on it? Oh, that's General So-and-so's. Okay, so the American people think you're corrupt because you have all these fancy cars and everything. You're supposed to be military people, and you have all these brand new cars that I can't afford back in the United States. But I'm here to tell you the corruption starts right there in Washington, D.C. on the Beltway. Most of that money's never leaving the United States. They're going to send you products, right? And the money is going to stay right there in the defense, the defense infrastructure of the United States. So why don't you take your $45,000 product here and use it that they're giving you? That's what you're going to get from the American people from now on. Is the product, not the money.
which will then the product will then end up on the black market. But yeah, they got to keep the money inside the military industrial complex, inside the Beltway. That's where the money has to stay.
That's where that $70 billion in the current bill on the floor right now. That's $70 billion. Most of it's not even leaving the United States. That's enriching Raytheons and the Northrop Grumman's and the General Dynamics. Those are the guys that are getting the money, not Ukraine.
Yeah. Well,
let's call
I remember a
spade
while
spade.
back. Yeah, I remember a while back when their defense minister rolled up in a brand new Bentley, and then Zelensky's parents bought a seaside villa in Israel. It's a bad look when your nation's at war and you're begging the rest of the world for money.
Right. Yeah,
it's just screwed up.
Well, and I'm sure they do get money through the banking system. I'm sure the United States is basically supplementing their economy too. But it's still. I don't want to say let's just abandon them, but then again, I also want to say, hey, we got enough of our own bills to pay here. I mean, where's Poland? Where's Germany? Where's France? Where's all these other NATO countries? France not part of NATO, but where's all these NATO countries that are worried about it? Why aren't they paying a lot more of their GDP to prop up Ukraine? Why are our American taxpayers having to do that? I don't understand that.
Well, the EU did just put together a package. They just gave them $50 billion. And again, I'm sure that works the same way. They're probably just getting old Soviet era scrap iron being sent over there to them as for armor in that money, and it's staying right inside the EU, just like the money here is.
Yeah. Don't ever assume. I mean, war is. I mean, the true root of war is the transfer of wealth. If you really get down to it, it's the transfer of wealth from one group of people to another. That's all it really is.
That's
whether that's wealth is food commodities or land or gold. It's the transfer of wealth. That's the reason nations go to war against each other.
Yeah, it's always over resources, and wealth is a resource, the ultimate resource for most people. But yeah, all wars over resource. So Patrick's asking if anyone saw Milei from Argentina went to Israel, and the first thing he did was move the Argentinian embassy to Jerusalem and then go pray at the wall. Yeah, I did see that. I thought that was pretty good. I like that dude so far. I like his view on communists. He's ready to open up Pinochet Airways down in Argentina. You ever seen his talk about his interview where he was talking to a journalist about communists and what he said to the woman about you just got to kill communists, you can't negotiate with them, you have to kill them, they're not human?
Yeah, I did see the wave tops of that. I think it was on YouTube or something like that. Somebody was mentioning that on one of the all the little chat rooms I have on Signal with all the old retired Green Berets. They do a lot of griping about the current state affairs right now.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit too much.
A little bit too much. Well, I think all of us have cause to be concerned, with the way things are going. It just doesn't look good for this year. It really doesn't look good for this year. I'm a little nervous. I got a lot of travel to do this year, and I don't really want to do it because I don't want to be far from home if shit kicks off. But I'll be wherever I am, I guess. So,
yeah, and I agree with you there. I think I said it a couple podcasts ago, right before Christmas. What really makes me nervous is come November, 50% of the country is going to be fighting mad at the other 50%. No matter what the outcome. So that part just really scares me. It really does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I fully anticipate that this summer when we get into fighting season, that we'll have another summer of love. I think there'll be cities burning and that kind of stuff. Like there was a couple of years ago, because they're going to have to try to make things really, really, really bad to get their desired outcome, because they can't really cheat their way into this one. They did that last time. They went too hard and it was obvious. and it still is, even though nothing's being done about it. But they know the people won't necessarily stand for it again. So I don't think they're going to be able to go quite as hard. They're going to have to come up with more creative means, and that means sending the useful idiots into the streets.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. You said, what happened last election was kind of obvious, but nobody enforces the rules. And, what I do with consulting and running in the defense industry here in this country, you see a lot of federal acquisitions regulations broken. You see a lot of rules broken, but nobody enforces anything. We see that with what's going on up in New York with the police being beat up and everything. There's rules out there. The rules are on the books, but nobody's enforcing the rules. I think that's across the whole spectrum, and I think people are tired of it. We all live by the rules. The rules apply to you and I, but they don't apply to people in power or people that aren't even citizens of this country, for example. And I think the people are getting tired of that.
Well, yeah, you've got New York City as an example. You got Perlman, who's being held without bail for choking that crazy dude out on the train that was threatening people and doing all kinds of shit. And yeah, the guy died. Okay, but still, he was a threat to everybody on the train. And then you've got all these illegals that beat up the NYPD officers that were released immediately without bail. So what we actually have is the two-tier justice system. There's the them and us, and we're not the them, or we're the us and them, and we're not the us. We're the them. So we have a two-tier justice system, like you're talking about. Biden is guilty of mishandling classified documents. Nothing's going to happen to him. But they kicked in the doors of Mar-a-Lago and did a big raid with the FBI because they said he had classified documents, which he didn't have. He didn't possess those because as president, anything he deems is unclassified, and he can take it with him. That's all he's got to do.
Flat out. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And so,
which, by the way, the vice president doesn't have that power. So even if
exactly
it's Senator Biden or Vice President Biden, you shouldn't have had that at your house or at your library or at whatever institution you deem as an office in Delaware. That's not yours to have.
Yeah. Yep. He can't declassify shit. So I wonder if he's going to pardon himself on the way out the door. I bet he does.
He's going to have to.
Yeah. Jimmy says they're trying to pass a civilian training ban. Have you heard about this? Yeah, we've heard about this one.
Yes, didn't I send that out to everybody a couple of weeks? Well, that was last week, didn't I? That scared me to death. Tactical riflemen would be outlawed immediately, right?
Well,
the Boy Scouts of America would be outlawed. What it says is any group of three or more doing paramilitary training is illegal. Okay, continue, Chris. I'll let you go.
That's exactly what I was talking about. It was just that. But again, it only matters if you give a shit. And yeah, you might get some high profile attention, but somebody's got to say no to these people. I know I've got a buddy in the training business who's already said he's not changing a damn thing. He don't care what they do. And he's one of those guys that if he calls me and says that they're stacking on his house, I'm getting in my truck and driving north. I'll go for that because we've got to put our foot down someplace and say enough. And that's a spot that I'll pick. So,
and anybody who votes for this, I can't believe Raskin even put this, came up with this bill. Because if you just read the description of the bill, there's three blatant things that should pop out at you. Number one, and we all agreed this during COVID, the right to any three or more. I thought that, again, that's one of the 5 things in the First Amendment, the right to assemble. If you're doing it peacefully, you have the right to assemble. I don't care what your reason for assembling is. That's against the Constitution to make a law against 3 people or more getting together and doing a compass course. That's paramilitary. And the other thing that said anything with a command structure is considered paramilitary. So all of our fire departments, all of our prisons, all of our EMS that are they're paramilitary. Does that make them illegal too? I'm sorry. It does if that law gets passed. What we got to worry about is the approach that the Democrats will use for it. They'll say that the illegal aliens that they created the problem. They're saying, well, they're inside here. We got sleeper cells, or we got these right-wing extremist groups, these militias doing training, and they'll get some Republican votes because right now it's narrow thin in both houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one way or another, this law might actually pass, and that scares me. That really scares me. And then who's going to enforce it? This current justice, or this current Justice Department might put their lawyers on it and enforce it. That's scary.
Well, and again, this will be selective enforcement. I guarantee you they won't go after the John Brown Gun Club or none of those guys out west in the Antifa circles that are doing the exact same stuff. That they won't get touched. It'll be right-wing guys that are out giving training classes will be the ones they come after.
Exactly. Exactly.
But then this is a slippery slope because they're going to have to really think about that. Like Egghead says, the government will infringe on your rights until you assert them. And like I said, it only matters if you care. If you're willing to go to the mat for it, and at some point something's going to happen where we're going to be willing to go to the mat, it becomes a different ball game then. And to all those that say, well, the law enforcement has to support it or has to enforce these laws. No, they don't. The sheriff can say, I'm not doing it. And I'm also not going to let the feds in my county to screw with the people who are doing it. And then if the feds want to continue down that road, then personal responsibility will become a key issue. And I'm just going to let you guys use your imagination of what that means in guerrilla warfare. So, and you will be held accountable.
A motivating factor and all that. I can't remember if there was a saying. It was above our arms room when I was a young soldier in the 82nd Airborne. It was like I think maybe it was Hemingway that said it. But if you're not willing to go die for your country or for the freedoms thereof, then you need to move and find a country you're willing to do that for.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's getting to be a point where you've got to say, hey, enough's enough. And we were talking about that on the way home back from Kings Mountain, and we're just everything's gone upside down. Hey, you're gonna have to draw a line in the sand and say we've had enough.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on pretty much everything about the federal government and their overreach and what they're doing. Some of you may have heard this before. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And that's pretty clear language. There's no gray area there, in my opinion.
I didn't know you had the preamble to the Declaration of Independence memorized.
I keep it pretty handy. I actually keep let me see, that should be right here.
That's pretty good.
Right here, travels with me, my pocket Constitution. So I carry one of these. I had cases of them. I gave them all away, but I carry a pocket Constitution with me. So
I did that all the time, and I was even considered a little bit too political. I'm a sergeant first class and a master sergeant, and I'm handing out to my subordinates. I'm handing out a preamble or I'm handing out pocket copies of the Constitution, and I have officers approaching me and saying, "Hey, you really shouldn't be doing that. We're not supposed to be political." I'm saying, "I'm sorry, sir. What are you sworn to? Don't you think you ought? The next time you re-enlist, the next time my subordinates re-enlist, I want them to understand that this is what you're swearing an oath to. Maybe you should read it before you raise your right hand and say, that's what I'm going to die for, if day comes to it, And that's what everybody in our military, in our government, they have sworn an oath to that Constitution. That's why I can't believe that Mayorkas wasn't impeached yesterday.
Yes,
when
I wasn't.
He's broken his oath to the Constitution several times. He's supposed to support the laws and protect the country. Period. That's impeachable offense right there.
He's also a cabinet level person, and he serves at the pleasure of the president. And to those people, that's what matters. No, not an oath, not law. None of that shit matters to these people. Like Auburn here says, first you need to BSA. BSA is woke. Send your young men to Trail Life USA. Over 900 troop and 50,000 members across the U.S. Our motto is let boys be boys. Boy Scouts of America does not allow gun training. Well, that's weak. They did when I was in. And Auburn, thank you for everything you've done tonight. I appreciate that, but I wanted to get that one out there. The Justice Department's they're not going to eat their own in this administration, as long as they're carrying the water. Now, if someone steps out of line and doesn't carry the water, then they'll go after him. But of course, who was going to be impeached? And most of the Republicans that are in the House and the Senate are useless. They're all in there for self-enrichment. They're not there to serve the people. And some of them are there for the polar opposite. They want to try to rule over the people. And Joe, does that mean the pronoun people, he, she, they, etc., can't train by themselves? They can train by themselves, and so can we. But like I said,
that last comment about Boy Scouts of America, okay, they don't, even if they don't do gun training anymore, almost everything else. I've got the original somewhere here on my desk. I got the original Boy Scout of America field manual, and that comes from Frederick Russell Burnham and who was the Robert Powell. And it was for England, started in England, and after their war in the Boer Wars in South Africa, and that's where Boy Scouts came from, was to teach young people, young teenagers, some of the things they need to do, to be a good soldier in the future. So that's considered paramilitary training too. So be careful about.
Oh no, it's very.
For example,
well,
that has a command structure,
and there's a uniform. And there's a command structure, and essentially what
Yes.
Boy Scouts taught it when I was a Boy Scout. Were you a Boy Scout? You probably were, right?
Yeah. I was.
Yeah.
I think I made it as far as Weebelows, and then I ate the brownies and I got kicked out.
Yeah, that'll happen every time. The good brownies or just brownies? Yeah. But what did Boy Scouts really teach? Essentially, basic soldier skills. If you think about it, how to live in the field, how to maintain hygiene in the field, how to feed yourself, how to do these things, how to provide shelter. Basic soldier skills is exactly what Boy Scouts taught. So,
yes, and it was all based off of two soldiers from the Boer Wars. One of them was American, Frederick Russell Burnham, and Lord Powell. Yeah, so exactly, and that's why they call it Boy Scouts of America, because it didn't actually start in America. It started in the British Army, or actually UK.
Right. Yeah. UK.
So.
Yeah. Prepper Book Club in the house. What is up? It's. I don't know. Let me see. Our man's right are in 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, the cartridge box. Frederick Douglass. Yep, nailed it. That's where our rights do reside, and too many people are afraid of some of those options. Not that I want them. I don't want anything like that, but I'm.
No, and I'm right there with you, Chris. I was one of the ones that was active duty almost 30 years, 28 years, 9 months, close enough to 30 years. So let's call it 30 years, but I'm the first one that would, people clear back in the 90s, people were saying, oh, we need to go to war over this, the Ruby Ridge incident or something like that. And I'd say, no, what are you talking about? You don't want to go to war. I've been to all these combat zones. I've been to Bosnia. I've been to Somalia. I've been to, to all these combat zones. You don't want to be in a combat zone in your own backyard. You don't want that. You don't know what you're talking about. But it's getting to a point where either you're a citizen or you're a subject, right? And right now, under our current society, even with the Constitution as everybody gives a vague reference to the Constitution, but nobody wants to follow it, so that makes us subjects. We're not citizens anymore.
Exactly.
So we got to be very careful. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the Second Amendment too. That prevents you from being subjects.
Yes.
That prevents you from being subjects. Makes you a
and
citizen.
that's the reason the Second Amendment's there. And again, that Paramilitary Prevention Act goes against the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment was to ensure that the 5 things in the First Amendment could be defended, right? And it says there, it doesn't say that, it doesn't say National Guard, it doesn't say Standing Army, it says militia
Mm-hmm.
on it, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you and I wanted to get together and we got 20 friends that wanted to create a militia, that's our right by the Second Amendment. We can create a
Well,
militia.
actually, doesn't the Dick Act do that too? The same thing. Doesn't the Dick Act codify militias as legal?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all you got to do. Then say, well, we're actually a militia, and under the Dick Act, we're legal, and you can't say anything about it. So, pound sand. There's been a
Yeah.
couple comments here. People talking about you trapping coyotes. Yeah, Robert says Kings Mountain. Interesting. They're having dog coyote problems for many years. After that battle, wolves were a problem there because the bodies of the Tories were barely buried. And someone earlier asked, "How are you trapping coyotes?" So if you want to share it, if you don't, say no.
With foothold
and,
traps.
okay.
No, we're putting no, it's totally legal. I have a trapping license in the state of North Carolina. You can only now when I was trapping in Colorado, you can only use snares, right? Snares it's a tricky business to get coyotes to go through a snare. I mean, usually you need a 3-wire fence or something like that. And you need to make, it's a lot of work to get a coyote to put his head through a snare and get him in a snare. But that's Colorado. In the state of North Carolina, where I'm at now, the only thing you can snare is beaver and otter. Everything else you have to use a foothold trap or a conibear trap for. So we were using foothold traps, and we'd just go out and we ride around in the guy's little Ranger, and they're all older than me. The guys that watch this property, it's a hunting farm. You can see Kings Mountain right off in the distance. But my young neighbor Troy and I, we went out. We would show these guys, okay, here's a set, or here's how we bait it. We have a Tupperware dish just full of the most god awful rotten deer meat you ever smelled in your life. Be prepared to puke when that cover comes off. But first we set the bait, and whether it's a little mound that looks like a fox left it, and we have some fox urine. We're trying to avoid scent. So the traps have been boiled in a bark coating. There's bark chips you put in boiling water to try to mask the smell of the metal, right? Because coyotes will smell the metal; they won't go anywhere near your bait, right? And then we use rubber gloves or gauntlets. We got rubber boots on. We try not to put any human scent out. And we try to make it look like, hey, a fox left this here, or a bobcat covered up this deer, or we got a little board thing we bored next to the side of the road, and it looks like a mink went in there. I don't know if you've ever been around a mink or had a girlfriend that had a ferret, but those are the most smelliest animals on the face of the earth.
Yes,
and
they are.
They will bring carrion into their holes, and it'll smell in there, and the coyotes will go after him and they say, hey, he smells lunch, and he's going to go in there and get not only the dead meat, but he's going to try to get the mink too. So you make it look like a mink was there, and you put a trap in front of it where you assume the coyote's going to put his front foot or something like that. So that's how we do it.
Interesting. I know some other coyote traps that we won't discuss here, but that those less than legal ones. But I like snaring. But
go ahead.
I do like. No, I just say I like snaring because I don't have any footholds or leg hole traps, but I do like snares. Good old galvanized wires are godsend.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't have the copy of the book anymore, but if you guys are interested, our audience, if you're interested, probably one of the best books I've ever read is in the Tom Brown series. Tom Brown was a tracking instructor from New Jersey. He did everything in Pine Barrens, and he's kind of eccentric, let's put it that way. But one of the best books I've ever seen by him, and I don't know if he wrote it or if he plagiarized it, but if you get the Tom Brown's book on improvised traps and snares, that thing is very educational, and most of them work. And I've actually experienced that. I used to go out and just try them, and they do work. So Tom Brown. Improvised snaps and traps and snares. Traps and snares. That's what it's called. Yeah. Cool. Great book.
So Will's asking, you and Charlie are doing a tracking class at Mountain Readiness, right?
Yes. Yes, and I was supposed T and I talked today on the phone, and he's taking care of his wife Amber tonight. She had back
Yep.
surgery. God bless her. But uh, I forgot to call Charlie today. But we're all about that. We're all about getting out there. What we'd like to do in this area, not just North Carolina, but Virginia. I live right on the cusp of Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia. So we started some organizations out west. I shouldn't say I started them. I didn't know. I was just a member of them. But there's the Pacific Northwest Trackers Association, and then there's also the Rocky Mountain Trackers Association. We would like to do an Appalachian Tracker Association, just to get guys in-house training where you don't have to pay for it and everything, but groups of 3 or more get together and actually just train and tracking, and we get together. You got a day or something like that. You practice some of the techniques that you do in track that you learn from some of these other tracking instructors. Charlie and I are also going to work on a book. I think I'm going to end up having to do most of it because Charlie's a busy man. But I was told by John Simpson, we'll have to get him on as a guest one of these days. But John Simpson said, "Hey, you need to write a book on tracking, because there's a lot of stuff out there, but you actually did it,
Yeah.
and you were known for it in the military." And I was like, you know what, you're right, and I need to do not so much on the patrolling techniques or anything, but this is how you learn how to track without wasting a whole bunch of time and effort. So it's not that hard to learn. It's just dedicating the time to do it.
Here you go. You got Auburn up there saying, "You're welcome to come trap some mink at our property. We are 5 miles from Mount Readiness. We have plenty of them."
Yeah, mink, I don't trap mink, and I don't care to.
You don't want to be case
They're
skinning those
smelly
stinky
animals,
rats? I was saying, you don't want to be case skinning those smelly rats, man?
No, one of the instructors out at Robin Sage had me case skin a squirrel. That's the stupidest thing I've ever done, I think.
Why?
Because
that don't make no sense at all.
you've ate squirrel. You and I have ate tree rat. How do you skin a squirrel? You cut the
split the
hole
middle
in
of
the
his
back
back.
and you rip it from both sides.
Yeah, you just pull his shirt and drawers off.
That's that fast. Now, have you ever tried to case skin them like you would a coyote or a fox?
No, that's what I was saying.
That takes over an hour.
And a super sharp knife.
with a little X-Acto knife and going, like this. Got to get your reading glasses on. It's a pain. I hated it.
Yeah, here we go. Big case skin this limb rat. No, I'm not. And hey, and you should write a book on tracking. And I know a guy that can help you. I'm just saying. So, you need to do that.
Spell.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying I'll help you make it into an actual book. So, and then we need like some photos and some diagrams. Maybe you could do an awesome book, man, and make you some money too.
We could get some actual practical experience. What I'd like to do is just kind of a how-to book, and there's already been people that have done it, but I just like to have a new approach. Charlie's got some great methods. Charlie Williams, I love working with him. He's with Pineland Resources. He does a lot of tracking classes, and some of his techniques for just getting guys to pay attention to detail he's got some methods that I'd like to include in the book too, and I've asked him to do that. So we're going to do that, and
cool.
Hopefully we'll have it published by next year. This time next year. I just got to get busy on the keyboard. Yeah.
Yes, you do. That's the hard part. I've learned in writing. That's the hard. Pete Robertucci in the house. What's up, my friend Pete Robertucci? But no, that would be fantastic, man. And I'll guide you through that because you don't need to pay nobody, and you don't need a publisher. You can do this yourself, and that way you make all the money. So, or you and Charlie.
Yeah, and you just have an approach. You just have an approach that people understand, and you follow the same principles that people have been trying to teach for years. And it's not hard to learn. I mean, one of my war stories is I had Tony Yost. He's pretty famous now. I mean, we lost him during the War on Terror, and anyway, Tony Yost was an Apache Indian, and I was into the mountain man reenactments and everything, and we'd always butt heads, about wagon burner versus the beaver trapper, that kind of thing. And anyway, Tony Yost was one of my students when I was a sniper instructor. And he's like, and I got one day where I could have the students and actually teach them a little bit about tracking, and imagine that, snipers learning how to track human beings, So
Yeah, gee, who'd have
so
thought?
I'd get one day where I get to teach them a little bit, here's how you teach yourself how to track type thing. And Tony came in there early when I was handing out the summary sheets into the classroom, and he's like, "I'm going to do pretty good in this training today because I'm a Native American. I'm an Indian, And so I got up there on the podium. I said, "Okay, Tony, sit down." So I got up on the podium and I say, "Yeah, tracking is not a born skill. It's not inherited through your bloodline. It's a learned skill. Otherwise, how come so many white men came to this country and kicked the crap out of you Indians?"
Yeah.
He didn't like that, but we were good friends for years until we lost him in Iraq. He's a Silver Star winner, buried up in Arlington. Great man, Tony Yost.
Yeah, I know his name. I don't know why exactly, but his name, I know the name.
You probably know his name because the weapons, the building at the weapons department or the weapons committee is the Yost facility on Fort Bragg.
All right. That'll be why. Okay.
Yeah, Tony Yost facility. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, Rebecca in the house. There you are. What's up, my friends? Rebecca and Leon are tuning in tonight. And so Jimmy's asking, you ever trained or used a canine on a track, or are you just doing visual tracking?
Yes, last episode we had canine. What was? I got my notes right here. We had a great episode last week with canine. What is it? I want to get his website right. Who
Fortress Canine. Fortress Canine.
Fortress Canine. Thank you. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I had brain surgery. Sorry, guys. But anyway, Fortress Canine.
Working.
They use the Belgian Malinois, and the Belgian Malinois is probably the most amazing animal I've ever seen. In all my tracking experience before we did the dog teams at 10th Group, we were there. There's two pilot programs, 7th Group and 10th Group, and we did the canine program. We were kind of mimicking what CAG was doing, or the National Delta Force, what everybody calls them. They were using dogs, so to sniff out explosives, and we were following their example. But we said, hey, we're going to have 14 guys on a team. There are going to be 7 dog handlers and 7 dogs amongst these 14 guys, and all these 14 guys are going to be certified visual trackers, right? And in my experience before that whole experiment, that pilot program, was that canines worked in search and rescue or worked in law enforcement. A Labrador or a German Shepherd or any of those other breeds, they were good at one thing, and it's what their trainer was really good at teaching them. Whether it's sniffing for drugs or body cadaver dogs or tracking dogs. We had some bloodhounds out there and everything. We go on these search and rescues, for the guys that used to get lost out in the Rocky Mountains or out in the Pacific Northwest. And I never thought that a dog could do the whole spectrum until I met those Belgian Malinois. And that's what I was impressed with Fortress Canine. He's breeding not only Belgian Malinois, but he's trying to, and you heard him, he's trying to breed some of those pups to where those are the smartest dogs I've ever seen. And yes, and it depends on the handler too, of course, but they can work off leash, they can sniff out explosives. We caused havoc for all those guys trying to put the roadside bombs out there and everything. And we could figure out, usually we came out post-incident, but we figured out how they were emplacing the IEDs and things like that. And we used canine. The canine saved our butts a lot of times. Yeah.
Well, this right here, this is Ranger, and hopefully he's going to be a new student of Fortress Canine. So he's a blonde Malinois.
Yeah.
9 months old.
Look up last week's episode, and very informative. That guy knows what he's talking about when it talks about training dogs for tracking, or for bomb sniffing, or for home defense, whatever you want that Belgian Malinois to do, he can do.
Well, we're looking at taking him. I'll be taking that dog over to Joel for Joel to take a look at him and see what he thinks, and then if everything works out, we're going to be taking that Malinois right there and he's going to be going to school at Fortress K9, and we'll be shooting a lot of video of the whole process of the whole thing. And so that'll be pretty cool. I hope it. Yeah, I mean, he looks like a great dog. He's very well behaved. He's fairly well trained now. He's just not trained in bite work or tracking or anything like that. And I wanted to train to track and for bite work. That's the two things I want him to do. So, man, it's already 9 o'clock. That went by quick, y'all.
And that goes right back to talking about, putting those traps out for coyotes and anything canine. We got to remember a dog's sense of smell is 120 times greater than a human, right? So when you and I, Chris, we smell a Supreme Pizza from Domino's, that dog can tell you what kind of, is that a wheat dough or is that a white dough? What kind of tomatoes are on the sauce? They can tell you, this got sausage and this got that many ingredients in the sausage. Those dogs are incredible when it comes to their sense of smell. They really are.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll have one to put to work here soon. So yeah, and guys, don't forget in March we will be in in Kentucky at the Bushcraft Homesteading Preparedness Expo the weekend of the 15th and 17th, and then the following weekend we will be at the Kentucky Sustainable Living Expo in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we'll be up there for a little bit. In April, we don't have a tag for this one yet. We're going to get it put up, but we will be at an event up in Camden, Tennessee, at a Self-Reliance Expo up there with SOE guys. So we've got some travel coming up. And, of course, we have Mountain Readiness the first weekend of May. So we've got lots of stuff coming up, lots of travel. I was on the road for several hours today getting up here to Tallahassee because we're going to be hanging out at the Capitol tomorrow with some folks over there. And I'm smoked. So you got anything you want to leave them with tonight, man?
Yeah, the guy I was riding with today, we did several hours in my truck, and he really enjoys the podcast and everything. And so while you're in Tallahassee, invite some of those congressmen to come on and discuss why we're so messed up. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't know if I doubt if Chris could get any congressmen to come on because they'd be scared to be canceled in this current culture they're living in right now. So
well,
there's your challenge.
They invited me here. They did invite me here. So I'm here at their invitation. So
well, see if they'll accept the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I know one guy who's not running for re-election. I know he'd probably do it. So he'd be fun to talk to. He's one of us. But anyway, that's it for this week, guys. Sue, thanks for coming in, man. Good to see you. You look good. I like the beard. Like you look good. Very distinguished.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be the full Taliban like you. I could get a whole fist of yours there, but I don't think I'm going that long.
Oh shit! I like the Taliban look. It's got its advantages. So, all right, guys. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for being here tonight. We will catch you guys all next week. There's no Facebook Live because we're still in Tallahassee tomorrow night, and but everything else is on deck for next week. So you guys know the drill. Be good at it. Sue, I'll see you later, brother.
See you later.